is running a little late. So if the majority of the board want to wait 5 minutes for him to show up.
Doesn't matter, I'm good.
Yep.
I think he needs to be here.
We're going to wait until maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to see if Mr. Reddick will show up. Then we'll get started. He's supposed to be on his way. Yes.
One in Virginia.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Got one in Braille. Elaine, you ready?
Okay, yes, sir. Good evening, Commissioners. This evening, we are talking about regarding the roads and undedicated right-of-way and roads. And we also have a very specific road that's been undedicated to the county that is being disputed by some of the citizens that live on that road, and that is Timber Ridge. So I did prepare a brief PowerPoint slide. One of the things that I would like to talk about is just the definitions from the OCGA. Often and historically, we have our own verbiage internally has been a private road, meaning that it just was not dedicated to the county and maintained. And that has caused some confusion because there are definitions of what a public road is and what a private road is, which is a little bit different than how we have used those terms. So dedication means the donation by the owner, either expressly or impliedly, and acceptance by the public or properly for public road purposes in accordance with statutory or common law provisions. So the roads that we know of that we state that we have county right-of-way, we have the ownership or responsibility to maintain that right-of-way, those roads have been dedicated to the county through legal action and legally signed off on, given to us, and we've maintained those. Right-of-way means generally property or any interest therein, whether or not in the form of a strip which is acquired for or devoted to a public road. So some of our roads have a 30-foot right-of-way, some are 40, some are 60, some are 80, and that is just determined, some of it by the state of Georgia, and whether it was paved. It also determines on the years. Certainly roads that were dedicated to us in the 60s and 70s and 80s have a much smaller right-of-way, whereas we started changing into the 80s and 90s and started paving 10 and 12-foot lanes, that right-of-way became much larger to incorporate the drainage ditches and have enough area. So the private road means a privately owned road or right-of-way, including any bridge thereon, which is only open for the benefit of one or more individuals and not for the general public. This term also means a road which lies on privately owned land. Typically, that's, our gated communities are private, and those are obvious. Some of them require easement access, and so oftentimes there will be a landowner that purchases a piece of land, and it's off of a lane that someone else accesses their home, and they have to actually request an easement so that they can access their property. The public road means a highway, road, street, avenue, toll road, tollway, drive detour, or other way that either is open to the public or has been acquired as right-of-way and is intended to be used for the enjoyment by the public and for the passage of vehicles in any county or municipality of Georgia, including but not limited to the following public rights, structures, sidewalks, facilities, incidental to the construction, maintenance, and enjoyment of such rights-of-way, surface, shoulders, sides, bridges. So there's a little bit more that goes in. It lists about 27 things that could be a public right-of-way. But ultimately, those are typically not gated. It doesn't require an easement. Those are access to the public. And that's going to be important when we talk a little bit later about our specific road that's being disputed right now. Next slide, please. So these specific roads that we've identified are the paved roads that have not been dedicated in major subdivisions. So this does not include paved roads in minor subdivisions or our unpaved roads that have also not been dedicated to the county. This is a very specific, limited group. So we've got streets, obviously, in the Harriet's Bluff Road area, Laurel Island Parkway, Vicuna, Waverly, Coleraine, Clark's Bluff, Mush Bluff. So out of those roads, we've got a total mileage of 5.84 miles. I put the year of when they were developed, just so we can see those as well. Some of these roads have, they went through, some of them did go through the process, and we've got records of where we did our inspections and went back to the developer and said, this is what you need to do. It's not up to county standards. Some of them at that point quit. They did not make the improvements and moved on. That's the case with Deals Circle North. There was phase 3 and 4. So in Deals Landing, we had phase 1 and 2, which complied with everything. They dedicated to it. We accepted it. Life was good. Phase 3 and 4 was never brought up to the standards. And at some point, the developer quit saying, I've done everything and producing those documents.
Was
So-
one and two on the south end? or you'll circle south?
The north end, sorry.
North,
Yes,
okay.
north end. So 1 and 2 is on the south, 3 and 4 is on the north.
Okay.
And then you have some like Holly Haven Drive and Holly Haven Court. When they originally developed, they did develop it to the county standards. They did not request in the beginning in 2004 to have it. You know, I've had conversations with the folks that did create it, and their intention was always at some point to give it over to the county, but they hadn't up until that point. I believe the last time I spoke with them was in 2021, perhaps. So each has a little bit of a different story. Not all, you know, some of them have requested the county support, some have not. I don't know each one of these individually. Does anyone have any questions about these specific roads right now? Okay. Next slide, please. So the potential research required, as I said, some of these we have really good records, and it would be easy to identify and stand whether it was ever dedicated or not, and if it wasn't, why. However, there would be some additional research that would likely have to be done that's above and beyond what we can internally do, and we would have to hire a title abstractor. So we don't know that cost at this time, you know, depending on the road, the age, the amount of what they do. You know, it could range from $2,000 to $20,000. So this excerpt is just the dedication of streets in the public areas, easements, and parks. This is from Section 1201 in our Unified Development Code. You know, something that we have obviously talked about is this UDC came in 2009. All of these were developed prior to the UDC becoming into effect. So a few of those things, our UDC now requires streets and public areas, easements, and parks to be brought up to county standards as written in the UDC code prior to the county accepting dedication. So that's something, you know, we would probably want to talk about. The acceptance of formal offers of dedications of streets, public areas, easements, and parks shall be by the resolution of the Board of County Commissioners. The approval of a final subdivision plat shall not be deemed to constitute or imply the acceptance of any street, easement, or park shown on said plat. Next slide. This just kind of shows a couple of the areas that is in our Unified Development Code that shows what the required improvements are, the condition of the asphalt, stormwater drainage, street signs, vegetation, etc., and the procedures and the permits. So the last slide is just to give everyone something to think about or talk about. I went through and did some estimates just on a broad level of the 5.84 center line miles, which equates to 11.64 shoulder miles. So vertical vegetation, you know, depending on if we were to take over and accept, and someone will have to upgrade these subdivisions, whether the subdivisions do it themselves or we would do it. And then of course there's maintenance. So the drainage ditches, that's based on 750 linear feet a day with a great all excavator, depending on how many years. If it's been 25 years and the ditches are full and the culverts are packed, you know, your production rate's going to be lower around 500. And that includes your equipment operator, your dump truck driver, everybody required to be out on, you know, if there's flagging, then there's traffic control involved. I did not go on the high end. I feel like that's probably a pretty conservative number. Cross pipes with the guess that every road must probably have at least one cross pipe that's going to be, especially the older ones, probably have old metal culverts that are going to have to be replaced. And if they only had one at the entrance, it's $50,000. So that again includes the labor and materials, and that's providing that there's not multiple cross pipes under the roads. Resurfacing could be anywhere from $984,000 to $1.3 million, depending on the condition and depending on whether, you know, we chose for a pavement preservation or a hot mix asphalt. And then of course signs, depending on the condition of the signs and the reflectivity and things like that. Drainage outfalls obviously are unknown. We would need to research further on the roads and understand if there were any outfall easements. And then of course, you know, what condition those drainage outfalls are in. I would think, you know, that's going to be critical. The drainage is probably more important than the road condition, quite honestly. and then the estimated cost. So it comes out, roughly $200,000 per center line mile, which really comes into what we're budgeted and what we spend today, which is roughly $14,000 per mile per year cost to maintain. And that's those major components of drainage and cross pipes and signs and vegetation and asphalt. And then, of course, we'd have to consider the future. So I will open that up for questions or discussions, and then we can, we'll address Timber Ridge.
Shalana, just go into the cost. I wasn't really considering this until looking back at just how old some of these streets are and how property lines may have changed over time. But do you think there would be a need for surveys to be updated?
Yes,
Okay, so we'll have to add that in.
that's a very good.
Yeah.
Good find.
Just thinking about that. I think also within those surveys, it may be helpful if, just for the board, I mean, we're talking 40, sometimes 50 years on some of these roads. May want to include an H&H study too, just depending upon, the drainage situation in some of those areas. I know some of these roads have significant drainage issues already. So just maybe something that we would have to consider too. Like if we need to upgrade any types of pipes that are out there, if the current pipe sizing is not the correct pipe based off of conditions today, because conditions today versus 50 years ago are a lot different. So.
And this doesn't include any subdivisions that are still dirt roads?
Correct. No, sir. This
Yep.
does not include unpaved roads or those in minor subdivisions.
So this is,
This is just maybe the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
well, and one way to look at this, so this is just exclusively with paved roads in major subdivisions, which are more than 10 lots. So one of the reasons this brought up concern for me, I mean, other than having some folks reach out, but looking at it, our UDC today doesn't allow for this to happen. There's got to be some type of maintenance mechanism in place, whether it's an HOA or a maintenance agreement or something to the effect that you don't have you don't end up with more than 10 homeowners sharing a road that's a private road and there's no mechanism to maintain it. And so, trying to look at this issue, a lot of these streets are, like you mentioned, it's a case-by-case situation of why they weren't accepted, but trying to rectify the situation of not having all these private roads existing in major subdivisions where you have more than 10, 10 parcels, is trying to figure out what the best solution. Now, in the case of like, if there was a instance where the developer was trying to dedicate the road and the county told them, well, you've got some deficiencies here, X, Y, and Z, fix these. They never did. I'm curious, and I know nobody, here at planning was there at the time, but why were they allowed to continue to get COs on houses and some of those things? Because that's a little bit more concerning. That would have seemed like a perfect leverage to say, you've got to fix these roads or these issues with the roads, and we're not going to give you a CO on this property, or we're not going to let you final plat the development. And that's kind of, I think, what we did maybe I can't remember exactly, but I think for the neighborhood we developed, we did the final plat and the road dedication at the same time. And that's pretty typical with development. So they should have either not been allowed the final plat, the subdivision, or made the improvements before people could have, lived there. And if they didn't want to dedicate it, then that's fine, but they just needed to create a mechanism to maintain it because, fast forward to today, and I think that's where in some of these neighborhoods, you can't just simply, without having an HOA or something, you can't simply bring that many people together to make the maintenance improvements, let alone trying to improve any deficiencies that are out there today.
Many years ago, before the UDC came in effect and everything, you could accept the subdivision, and if they didn't bring the roads up, you didn't have to accept the roads. Then if they decided they wanted the roads paved or whatever and deed them to the county, then they had to be brought up to standards.
Right.
Which in times, some smaller ones required to be paved, some were left dirt. We've had one that we know that half the residents want it paved, the other half fights us, they want to stay dirt, and that's a major subdivision. So but it went back many, many years.
all of these roads don't need all of this to happen, do they? I mean, Deal's Landing, when I went out there the other day, there was water across the road, but there were no ditches at all. But the road itself looked like it was in pretty good shape. Just looked like to me you needed to dig the ditches. I mean, granted, that's simple. I understand that it's a little more complicated, but,
Yes, in that case, in Deals, you know, there's really no vegetation. That's not bad. The cross pipes being 40 years old are probably ending near their life. The ditches obviously would definitely have to be dug. That was one of the major problems with Deals of why they didn't get approved to begin with.
of no
Was the
ditches?
drainage, the drainage, they did not go back and correct the grade. And that's the grade of the properties, that's the grade of the road, that's the grade of the ditches. So there's ultimately a liability that at some point, you know, you may be accepting by taking that on. But yes, the drainage would be there. With it being 40 years old, I would look, the PCI can't be that great. At some point, it's gonna have to be resurfaced. It's probably already, you know, it could probably get pavement preservation because it has been low traffic and we don't have the log trucks and dump trucks and things like that. Although I believe somebody was accessing timberland off the end. I think that's been corrected, but it was a problem.
Another problem you might have is if you go in there and you start digging ditches, somebody's gonna complain that you're tearing up their yard.
When I think there was some other problems maybe about, and it may have been that neighborhood about individuals parking in the road and I think, maybe deputies have gone out and they said, well, it's a private road. We can't enforce any kind of, versus if it's a public road, there's a little bit more enforcement, on that side. Looking at the cost, I mean, that's concerning. But one thing to keep in mind, had the developers been given an ultimatum saying you've either got to create a maintenance agreement or we're just not going to approve your final plat, the subdivisions were created so we are getting that higher density, tax revenue off of versus, what it was before. I mean, maybe it was timberland or something in most cases, forestry. So whatever that was generating, I mean, for 20, 30, 40 years, we've been sitting here collecting the tax revenue off the density in its current form and not really having to been, I guess, doing zero maintenance to these roads. So it's, I know that's a big number looking at going forward, but it's, to me at the same time, trying to rectify a situation that never happened to begin with, but also trying to make up for lost time and getting them back in a position to where, they are livable, drivable.
It's kind of correcting the sins of our forefathers or whatever. Then if we do accept these, we got to think about where we put them in on the list of road paving.
Right. Priorities.
There's no guarantee that they would jump to the top.
Right. And this, I'll say, we kind of mentioned earlier, to me, this is completely different than like somebody having a dirt road because as it currently stands in our UDC, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's any provision for the county to accept the dirt road. I think it has to be paved and it's got to be up to certain standards. I don't think we're accepting any, GAB or any kind of, rock, different rock-based roads or anything like that. So, I know the concern is, well, if we do it on this, what about the paved, unpaved roads and the dirt roads and this? But, I think it's more of trying to rectify, the past roads to how our UDC currently is set up and, trying to make it make sense for the paved roads.
Well, there's some dirt roads and I know in my district that, people have called up and say, hey, why aren't you grading my road? And so, well, it's not a county road.
Right.
So
Yep.
we can't do it. So, there may be push from those people for us to take those roads.
Yeah, which we're currently not doing anyways, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that would be, I mean, I don't know, I can see the difference between an unpaved and paved road. I mean, but some homeowners may not. They may say, well, it's still a road. There's 12 people
Right.
live off of it. You should take it and grade it. But
And some of those are in severe deterioration to the point where emergency vehicles almost can't get down them. Some they cannot get down
Right.
and some
What do they do when they can't get down them? I mean,
they take a pickup truck, drive to the end of the road, hope to put the person in the pickup truck and drive them out and get them into the ambulance. Or in some cases, when the weather's bad, we just notify the folks that they should evacuate because we will not be able to get to them should something happen with heavy rains, hurricanes, anything that's going to add the rain to it, we definitely can't get to.
And are those all roads that you're describing, or are some of them like more driveway style, or?
No, they're
They're-
roads
The roads, okay, wow,
with 7 to 10
okay, wow.
homes on them.
Yeah, I recall, without giving any major details, I recall one road, it was a decently long road, private road. County had no ability to maintain it. And at the end of the road, unfortunately, the family had a child that really had some really high level needs, but they're 20 miles away from the local hospital. And when it rains a lot, the road overtops the water because there's marsh on both sides of the road. And I mean, we recommended, quite a few local contractors to try to help them out. And I think some local contractors, they were able to donate some time and effort. Because at the end of the road, there was only like a few households. You're talking about a long road and that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Whether it's in GAB, Crush Creek or anything like
Yeah.
that. I mean, you're talking significant amount of money. So it's tough,
There's,
these private roads.
yeah, there is a road that, as I understand it, the home caught fire and burnt to the ground, but the fire truck couldn't get down the road because it was only 20 or 30 feet wide, whatever the situation was. And I would say within the last 10 years, but they couldn't physically get the truck down because of the vegetation and overgrowth. And
Mhm.
they couldn't, by the time they got enough hoses hooked up to get to the end, it was too late.
Well, some of those, easements or right of ways, they might start out 20 and 30 feet, but if you don't mow them and maintain them for 10 or 15, 20 years, then all of a sudden they're 8 feet or,
Got enough for a car or pickup to go
Yeah.
through and that's it.
You actually got trucks hitting limbs on US 17 right now because of no maintenance by the state and everything. Used to, the drainage on the state routes were great and everything, but they, not anymore. And that's a state route, let alone a county maintained or not maintained, private or public road.
One question I had, and this is probably for Mr. Myers, would be what if I mean, obviously we would have to ask for right of way. And while 90% on the roads may say yes, what happens if all of the owners do not give the right of way?
We did have that situation several years ago with one of the roads on the north end, and we put it to the community, get your folks in line, and they would not. So we declined to take the road at that time.
Yep.
It's a matter of, it could be a taking, if the commission has the stomach for an eminent domain, but you don't want to have 9/10 of your owners offering to give the property to you and then have to pay some, the one holdout. So, it sets a dangerous precedent when you do that.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I guess that would all, probably depend on how the title search comes back and who is on title to these properties, whether it's maybe a past developer or, if there's nobody in that chain left, maybe it's 20 current homeowners or,
Originally, when the chairman and I come on the board, it was unanimous by the 5 board members that we would not buy right of way to pave roads. We would not buy your land to pave the road for you.
Right.
And that's, I think, one of them that our attorney is referring to. And so we took the money from that one and paid somebody else's road that was willing to give the right of way.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Commissioner Reddick, you had mentioned just the title abstractor work, and I know, Mr. Paul, is here tonight just about Timber Ridge, but, that would kind of be one of my recommendations if the board does, intend to move forward on any of these roads, especially ones that may be in, have any level of contest, whether it's public or private. We're already doing one road right now. It's not a paved road, so it's not on this list. It's an unpaved road, but that would be probably my recommendation that we, maybe solicit some assistance on doing a title abstract on that.
I think one thing that I've seen with you is that you have the ability to speak to homeowners. If you remember, you and I went out in front of the high school, went in that subdivision. And it seemed like to me that some of them wanted you to do it, some didn't. But by the time it was all said and done, you solved the issue. I mean, these folks here are from Deal's Landing. And I went out there the other day and the water was across the road. It didn't look like it'd be that difficult, granted, I'm a layman, you have to remember that. But it looked like to me, you could dig those ditches fairly easy. The road itself was looking in bad shape at all. Now out at at Harris Bluff Road, that ditch, it was running over as well. So you'd have to do something with the incoming ditch as well. But there's no dip at all. There's nowhere for this water to go. So to me, I think if you took it case by case, and you had some leeway, I don't know if we can do that, Joey, or not. I don't know. But if there's a way to have the leeway, so you take each individual neighborhood, you go out and talk with these folks, maybe a little semi-town hall meeting, and just find out exactly what they want. And you have that ability. I've seen it.
Right.
I saw you take a guy that was ready to kill the world, and he was smiling when you left. So I think that's a good thing. So to me, if we took it case by case and started helping the past, I don't want to live in the past, and we can't help what the past was, but we can change the future if we do it that way, one piece at a time. Because I'm telling you, on that road, I guess you would need the cross pipes, wouldn't you? You'd have to have those.
The cross pipes and likely drainage easements, because some of those roads were designed to spill into the back. So.
And there's swamp in the back, isn't there? I mean, I didn't see any
It's
houses.
timberland. It's about 2,000, 3,000 acres of timber, harvested timber. So I think, to Sean's point, obviously we would need to get a survey. We would probably need to get an H&H study. We would need to evaluate what right of way we would need, then survey the land or survey everyone first and see if everybody's on board. If they're not on board, then that's our first block.
Yeah.
They have to get a drainage easement from that other property owner to be able to dump the water on his property.
Correct. If it can't come to Harriet's Bluff, if for whatever reason, there's likely a breaking point, on most of the roads where 50% of it would come to Harriet's Bluff, and life is great because we have that as well. But there could be 50% is meant to spill to the back. So we would need to identify all easements that would need to be obtained. If everyone's in agreement, great. Then we look at what right of way needs to be dedicated over. Then we start identifying, what maintenance needs to be done. And then, of course, filter it in, prioritize, and, look at funding for those projects.
Yeah. And to your point, Martin, and kind of tying into what Sean said, I think, if we do that title search, I believe that's going to show us who we can have those conversations with. Because, if we just go to every neighborhood, it may not be applicable to, the neighbors or the property owners in that neighborhood may not be on title to those roads. And so we got to figure out who to have those conversations with. And once we figure out who's on title, then we can go have those conversations and see if there's a willingness to dedicate the road. If there's not, that's no problem. They can just continue to maintain it, or not maintain it in some of these cases. But, I feel like most people would cooperate and be willing to have those negotiations.
And some of these you might find out that, the developer who probably still owns the roads might not be in business anymore. It might even be dead.
Yeah.
So likely, not dead, but they're not hanging around, that's for sure. I mean, you said this is a 40-year subdivision where you guys live? It's pretty old.
Mm-hmm.
Well, y'all from Deal's Circle?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in 92. When that was in.
Okay.
If y'all were okay, I mean, I know the Timber Ridge one is obviously one of the most contested right now. I mean, if the board is okay, just kind of giving a nod to us to go ahead and at least consult with an attorney's office to do the title abstract work on that, we can actually go ahead and get that started. We'll share that information with you on what that cost will be, but I think we can at least go ahead and get started on that one.
I don't have an issue with that. Anybody else?
None.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Anybody got anything else for Shelley?
No.
How do you want to look at these roads? Do we want to start putting them in order and move forward?
Just pulling back up this list.
Or
I know
do-
it-
I mean, Deal Circle North obviously has reached out and asked us for help. And Timber Ridge is disputing and also asking for help. So those are certainly high on the priority list. The only other ones I personally know of would be Holly Haven Drive and Holly Haven Court that I've spent ample amount of time up to and including going out and trying to estimate what they would need to do to help them get to the point to upgrade it, to get it to county standards and then bring it in front. And that is historically what we have told folks that are on roads that are undedicated, that they would have to do the UDC, they would have to bring it up to code. Once they got it there, then come and request that the county take over dedication.
I know some of these, places that's not gonna happen because the people just can't afford it.
Yeah. Or they can't collaborate together because there's too many people, and maybe part of it is affordability, and it's kind of hard, I guess, to look at all these roads and say, okay, well, these people aren't going to have to bring them up to standards because there's no way they can either A, afford it or B, collaborate together. But then these folks, have to because they can afford, I don't know. It's kind of hard to look at it like that. I would say we should definitely, to your point, I mean, we should definitely prioritize the ones that we know there's issues on and the ones we're getting calls on. But I think we should keep all these together and, keep them all moving along because it's only a matter of time before the other ones have issues. Like Catfish Creek or, off of Clark's Bluff Road, it was done in 2005, and right now everything's not too terribly bad, but you give it 10 years and you're going to have the same issues there as you're having in some of these other neighborhoods because nobody's maintaining them.
Now, those might be up to our standards. I don't know.
No.
But they might be up to our standards,
Yeah.
but just not dedicated to us.
They could be. And I actually reached out to that developer and he's still in business. He's going to check his files, but I haven't heard back as far as why they never got dedicated. So, I mean, that may have been one where there's deficiencies and they said fix them. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe they just forgot.
And the other two roads off of Akina, I've had, residents out there ask me about their roads and, I've told them, well, we can't do anything, they're private. So there is issues there as well.
And I know you have a lot of time on your hands that you could go out and do this. Instead of working 40 hours, maybe 80. I get all that. And we may want to look at getting you some help.
I would send probably a mailer first, just to try to, usually the mailers out to the roads, a brief survey with a postage paid envelope usually gets, and we'll send it to the tax address, not the home, because there are tenants and things, rental properties. And then usually once I can get 90% within the first week or so, we can make a little bit better decisions from there.
I think we take it case by case, I mean, that's the way to look at it.
Yeah, I think the issues are going to be definitely very situational. I mean, some have drainage issues, some may have sub-base deficiencies or potholes or something like that. And it's all going to be different too, depending on who's on title. If you've got to deal with one person who's willing to give it up versus 20 people and, 19 of them are, and like Mr. Myers said, one person's holding out because they want to be difficult, that's going to change the dynamic of, everything and what we can do.
Well, and I think to all of your points too, the case by case kind of makes a little bit more sense to me just because of budget implications, because each of these roads, to y'all's points, are going to have different issues, different situations that, come, whether it has proper drainage, proper asphalt, proper striping, signage, all of that good stuff. So, I mean, as time goes on and each one of these comes up, we're gonna need to account for a budget amendment because none of this work has been allocated for within the budget at all.
On some of these smaller roads, you probably, I don't know if you need striping or not.
Well, you may not need striping, yeah. It just depends on each situation.
But certainly, and I mean, looking at a time frame, just saying if we were continue moving forward with this, I mean, it may even be into next fiscal year before we were actually starting to make any improvements, but we could, it would certainly, the time to keep planning for this is now and keep it, moving along, but,
Gotta start
You know,
somewhere.
that's right.
Yeah, I think just one good thing, like if we take it case by case, Shalana can send out those mailers. And then in the meantime, while she's waiting on the mailers to come back, we can kind of get a good cost proposal to you, each of you. And let you know what we anticipate the cost to be to either update it to county standards for acceptance or any other opportunities y'all would like to explore. The title abstract work is, if it's contested or not, will take a little bit more time. And obviously the survey and H&H too, if that's gonna be something that we'll need for various roads too, so. Just a lot of things to consider.
Anybody got anything else?
No, I'm good.
Well, this will conclude our work session. We'll start back up at 6 o'clock for a regular meeting.
Katie, hey. Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number. You're muted.
Commissioner Goodman, and join us for the pledge.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God in heaven, it is a conflicted world that we live in. We pray for your intervention and for your guidance. Give the world leaders the opportunity to do what is right. Protect the innocent. Be protective of the soldiers and the families. Be with them. Be with those who are held hostage. Lead them to safety. Father, we're reminded here locally of the fragility of life. And as things unfold, we know that we pray for the loss and we pray for the officer who had to make a difficult decision. Father, be with all of those who serve and protect us. Lead this board in its considerations that we would do thy will. All of these things we ask in thy most precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Kate.
All commissioners are present.
Are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We got a first and a second to accept the agenda. All those in favor? Motion carries. If there's no changes to the minutes from the October 3rd public hearing and regular meeting, can I get a motion to accept those meetings?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
We got a first and a second to accept the minutes from the October 3rd meetings. All those in favor? Motion carries. This brings us to our presentation. Is it?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I appreciate you giving us a couple minutes tonight. This is one of the best parts of my job, to get to present the Employee of the Quarter and then the Employee of the Year when these things come around. Tonight, it's our honor to present the Employee of the Quarter for the third quarter of 2023. I have with me here Ms. Amy Peoples is my HR generalist, as most of you know, and she's probably the backbone of my entire department, but she's also the chairperson of the Employee Recognition Committee. So the employee being recognized tonight, received a bunch of nominations from several employees, and we're going to read just a couple of them here, okay? So this employee has shaped Camden County's efforts for the better and has helped many departments with their communication needs. He's got a way of making something out of nothing. He's able to take complex situations, break them down into smaller components, and somehow manage to make everything work out in the end. He should be recognized as Employee of the Quarter for his consistent efforts to provide superb support to all employees. He goes above and beyond what's required for his job. For example, he'll drop what he's doing at a moment's notice to help anyone in need. He always has a positive attitude and is friendly to everyone he works with. He's a superb employee and should be recognized as Employee of the Quarter. And then the last one we'll share here just says that he goes above and beyond for all employees of the county. When given a task, he does them happily. He's willing to help out folks whenever they need help. So this evening, we're so happy to honor one of our employees who's one of the most clever and cheerful people that you'll ever meet. Just on a personal note, some of the things that I'll share. He's got one of the best t-shirt collections that you've ever seen. My favorite one is the one he wears with big block letters that just says Great Scott on it, which is an obvious reference to the Back to the Future movie, but it's in reference to his name as well. He's an incredible father to an even more amazing little boy. He can quote the movie Airplane like a pro. It's very rarely a time that I don't pass him that he says something like, "This is Captain Underover," or "What's your vector, Victor?" So we love that. And also, he can carry a tune on a stand-up bass. I don't know if you know about that, but you have to be a psychopath to play a stringed instrument without frets. So, it's our honor tonight to recognize Mr. Scott Van Osdal as our Employee of the Quarter. He's one of our greatest assets, and we're happy to have you. Come on up, Scott. So Scott, tonight we'll have the commissioners come down and take a picture with you as well, but tonight you'll get this amazing certificate. You'll get a gift card. And then you'll get your picture taken. It'll be placed on the wall outside of the commissioners' chambers for people to poke fun at for at least the next 3 months. Come on up. I think your wife is here as well. Is your wife here? Thank you.
Psychopath. I like that.
All right, this brings us to the first public comment section of the night. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes and agenda items only. Anybody rescue Kate? Does anybody from the public wish to speak for the board? All right, we'll move right along. All right, Joey, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Commissioners. I'm here tonight to ask for the adoption of the final capital improvement elements amendment by resolution. Now, this document amends the 2008 CIE report and will begin the process of the county's impact fee program update. Now, this draft has been received by the Department of Community Affairs and approved, so tonight is the final step for approval from the board. Staff will recommend approval.
I'll make a motion on this item. I'll make a motion we approve this.
Second.
We got a first and second to approve the capital improvement elements. Any discussion? I know on part of this, our impact fee, we're going from like 7 buckets down to 4. or
Yes,
5.
sir. Yes, sir. We did combine the public safety.
And that, hopefully that'll allow the funds will increase faster in those categories, so we'll be able to spend the money.
Is the overall fee changing?
We will bring, our plans are to bring back the fee schedule within the next
Okay.
process, in the process. next,
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay.
Any more discussion?
Other than just like to say, thanks for all the hard work and getting it done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
All right, next up is, I don't see, Seth, you're handling this? Or
I'm here.
Julie? Oh, Julie's online. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm requesting approval to submit a grant to U.S. Forestry's Community Wildfire Defense Grant for a Community Wildfire Protection Plan in the amount of $210,000. Camden County is considered at risk. It has a higher wildfire risk to homes than 98.1% of counties in the state. Camden County will hire a consulting firm to develop the plan. A 10% match is required, which is $21,000, and will be provided in kind. Once the plan is developed, Community Wildfire Defense Grant funds will be available for implementation projects, but having a plan prior is a requirement to be eligible for those funds. At this time, I'm requesting approval to submit the grant as presented.
Can I get a motion on this item?
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this
Second.
item.
Got a first and a second to approve applying for this grant? Any discussion?
Yeah, would this, after we come up with this protection plan, would this include services such as, controlled burns and things of those natures? Or what types of actions would come out of the plan?
Yes, that is correct. There will be several different projects that will be identified in the plan, and that will be one of them, control burns and some others. Is Chief there to speak to that specifically?
Yeah.
Yes, to your question.
You
Yeah.
want to come over, Chief?
Good evening. Yes, that would address a range of issues. You remember the fires that happened in Hawaii? This is another issue to get forestry to help us address some of the concerns in Camden County.
Maybe a new tanker?
Hope so. Keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you.
All right, any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. Item number 3, Julie.
Okay. I'm requesting approval to submit a grant to the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Recreational Trails Program in the amount of $200,000. These funds, along with county match, will be used to make improvements to the St. Mary's River Overlook Trail at Browntown Wilderness Park. I am presenting 2 options. Please note that an email was sent to you making a change to the option 1 budget. There was a revision to the budget after the agenda memo was submitted. Option 1. To purchase and install 615 feet of new decking on the current boardwalk, and to add 850 feet of nature trail and amenities onto the trail. The total project cost for this option is $286,000, with $200,000 being provided by the grant and $86,000 being provided by the county's general fund. Option 2. To purchase and install 615 feet of new decking on the current boardwalk and add 850 feet of additional boardwalk and amenities to the trail. The additional 850 feet will extend from the boardwalk trail all the way to the river. This option is substantially more expensive. The total project cost for this option is $609,125, with a $200,000 grant being provided and $409,125 of match being provided by the county. Staff recommends approval of option 1.
If I may, Commissioners, good evening, Commissioners, if you'll pull out this 11/17 document, we have created a site plan on the first page for option 1. And then on the second page, it is the imagery overlay, and then on page 3 is the site plan for option 2. So to explain option 1, just once again to further say what Julie stated, in the blue line that you could see is the current boardwalk and its current structure that it is right now. In option 1, we would fully replace the boardwalk and replace it with composite wood, so that way that it would last and endure much more time than traditional wood. But with this option, we would create a like a pea gravel trail from the second trailhead all the way down to the boat ramp. That's where the nature trail would terminate under option 1. And if you would go to page 3 under option 2, you would see that we expanded the boardwalk from its current blueprint all the way down to the river to provide a pier down to the river where people could enjoy the river and see it. The issue with that is that it is much more expensive, but so option 1 is $286,000, which we would qualify for up to a $200,000 match from the DNR grant if we're awarded it. And then also option 2 is $609,000 roughly. So we would have to come up with, roughly $409,000 if we went with option 2. So we just want direction from you guys, from the board.
Now, when you say replacing the decking on the original stuff, you still got to go in there and do some support work as well.
That's correct. This number includes that as well.
And
So replacing it with that composite wood so it will last through time, since it is in a wetland area.
depending on how the structure is built there, you might have to do more support work with that composite material
Yes, sir.
than what's actually there.
Why?
Because natural wood has a wider support span than the composite. The composite, you gotta have more supports.
Load bearing.
No, they started making, I think it's pretty new in recent years, a thicker 2 by-dimensional composite material that does have a higher strength, but I don't know if it's the same as
Okay.
wood, yeah.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I know somebody that built their dock out of the newer one and boy, is it sturdy and
Is
everything.
it? Wow.
There's no give to it.
Yeah.
I actually got a couple of sticks of it when they were building it, so I know.
Okay,
There you
well, if it's a thicker material, maybe you don't need
Go
it.
ahead.
What's
Good evening, Commissioners. So like Commissioner Brandt was talking about, the decking that was quoted is the thicker two by
Okay.
new stuff. It's actually proprietary is TimberTech is the one we actually looked at. It's a little bit more expensive, but it does meet the requirements, the same span requirements for the 12 to 16 inches in between the supports. And we also included the leveling and supporting additional supports if needed with any rot that has happened underneath that we can't see already.
Okay.
Is the pea gravel trail going to be usable during a nominal wet season or wet period of time?
Yes, sir. So during this last rain that happened, 48 hours total that we had rain consistently, I went down to the Browntown Park and looked at that. There's one area that has a culvert that comes across the road near the boat ramp. We would continue that culvert into the swamp that's right there and have the trail go over top of that. The rest of that space was high and dry, had about a 3 or 4 foot elevation drop into the wetlands that sit next to it.
Yeah, if you continue that culvert from the road over to that swamp area, that'll give you more usable land in that park.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Matt.
I'll make a motion on this item.
What's the shelf life?
Of the composite material
Shelf life.
or
Useful life.
useful life.
More than treated timber.
Well, look at the boardwalk here in Woodbine, how long it's been down, when was it done in the 80s? And it's still standing and with no issues whatsoever with the composite. And the
Composite.
framework like you're talking about is deteriorated some, but the composite's still perfect.
What about, some type of non-skid? I mean, is that going on it?
Well, it'll have a textured surface.
Yeah, so the treated timber, just like the waterfront here in Woodbine, the treated timber is textured so that it does have a non-skid aspect to it. It's not necessarily non-stick, but it doesn't get as slippery in the rain. And it will not collect as much moisture or moss that a traditional timber would, because it's not as porous.
when was this boardwalk built?
I don't know. We don't,
Oh.
Commissioner Brandt,
Yeah.
a long time ago. It's been quite a while.
We put the mobile home out there for the deputy to live in, that was back in the late 80s, early 90s, so it's been there at least that long.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was just wondering too, I mean, y'all brought up a good point about the Woodbine waterfront, dock and all. If the decking is outlasting the support structure of it, I mean, we don't want to go to this expense and put a decking material that's going to last 50 years, but then the support members only last another 10 or 15, I don't know if we've looked, up under it a whole lot. I mean, I know there's some things that have to be redone, but
Pretty sure Matt looked at it pretty close.
pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion that we go with option B on this, because I've always wanted to extend that to the river and hopefully along the river eventually.
Option 2.
Option 2, option B. That's my motion.
Mr. Chairman, are you willing to make up the difference?
Well, there is probably about $90,000 in impact fees that we could possibly use on this.
I'll second your motion.
I'll go first and second for discussion.
Yeah. So just curious, looking at, and I haven't been out there, I've been out there to the park, but I've never gone on that trail. I mean, is it just pure nature type observancy or?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
'cause it looks
native
like-
observancy, birds, your typical Georgia swamp, cypress swamp.
Yeah.
It's really in bad shape.
Yeah.
Really bad shape.
Yeah, it's close.
I'm gonna have a hard time spending $609,000 when we have road paving and things that people have been waiting for years and years. when we can spend the 200,000 or whatever the match is. Julie's not still on, I don't guess, but I
Baby
think
steps.
baby steps are in order here. I would rather go with, option one.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, even if we went with option one and added in the pea gravel trail, that pea gravel trail would be an improvement, and we can always come back down the road and
When
tie
times
on
are
to that
better.
intersection and
Yep.
bring it on down.
And it goes all the way to the river as well, right?
Yes,
Correct.
it can, yeah.
Or it could. What, as far as that, I mean, that price, it's a lot more expensive, but would would that involve cutting trees down and kind of making a path to there, or is there a path already somewhat
So-
established? Or
In this case, it would follow along the current wood line that is there now. So you wouldn't have to do very much, as far as tree removal. There's a pretty clear cut path right along the tree line. If you get into the tree line, like the current path is right now, the current boardwalk is now, you start getting into the wetlands, to the federal wetlands. And so there's a lot more would have to go into that if you continue to boardwalk through the woods.
right?
All right, right now we got a motion on the floor to accept, option B. All those in favor? Those opposed? Anybody care to make another
I
motion?
make a motion to accept option one, which includes the proposed pea gravel trail extension, and certainly to take advantage of the opportunity to put the improved synthetic building 2x material on the current existing boardwalk with improvements to make it safe.
I'll second that.
All right, we got first and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to item number 4. Who's doing this? Brian's on the phone?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
You can go ahead.
Can you hear me? Oh, yes, sir. Thank you for your time tonight, Commissioners. I'm here with a request for the purchase of a 2023 Ford Escape SUV from Murray Ford of Kingsland. This will be used by the tax assessor's office in their field reviews. We currently have 6 field appraisers and 5 vehicles. We like for each of the appraisers to have their own vehicles. They have their own assigned areas. But this will be for the purchase of that vehicle for the use by the field staff. Murray Ford quoted is $28,298, and they do have the vehicle in stock currently.
Okay, can I get a motion on this item?
I make a motion to accept the purchase of the 2023 Ford Escape with great appreciation to our chief appraiser for being brave enough to put the word escape in association with tax appraising. And I think you're picking the right vehicle for the right task, and I commend you for that.
Yes, sir. This will be the third one that we have, and they've been really good vehicles for us out in the field.
Thank you.
We're purchasing it local.
Local. Thank
You got a first and second to purchase the Ford Escape. Any more discussion?
I'm just curious, are these all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive?
They're front-wheel drive 4 cylinders. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thank you.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. All right, this time we need the motion to adjourn the regular meeting and convene the Solid Waste Authority meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Got a first and second. All those in favor? Now we're in a Solid Waste Authority meeting. Is there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We got a first and second to accept the agenda. All those in favor? Motion carries. If there's no changes to the minutes from the September 19th Solid Waste Authority meeting, can I get a motion to accept those meeting minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
First and second to accept the minutes? All those in favor? Motion carries. All right, this brings us to the public comment section of the Solid Waste Authority. Is anybody registered? Anybody from the public wish to speak about trash? Nobody? All right. We'll move on to item number 1. Campbell, you ready?
Hey, good evening, everyone. I've got a short presentation here to give everybody a little more background on this project. All right, I'll start off with our mission statement. The mission statement of the Solid Waste Landfill Department is to provide environmentally sound, safe, and cost-effective management of solid waste for the citizens of Camden County. This is an overview about this presentation. We're going to be talking about the MSW remaining capacity, Phase 5 timeline, and our financing options. This is a picture of the front of the construction plans for Cell 5. ACC is very close to having the final construction plans ready. This is an aerial of the MSW. I don't know, I don't really have a pointer, but if you can see the top left there, that's the entrance with the office, and then it goes down to the MSW. Green button. Oh, okay, I got it. All right, so here's the entrance with the office. This is the self-service area with the roll-off cans. The trucks come down this way and come up the Hall Road, and we're dumping right back here right now is where we're filling as the working face. You can kind of see how this is split up. This is cell 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is the area right here we're talking about. It's yet to be constructed. And that gives you a good view of it. So when we talk about remaining capacity estimates are based on the current compaction rates and daily tonnage averages. They're an estimate based on a snapshot in time. They can and will. Remaining capacity is an estimate of the remaining air space of the landfill. Remaining capacity is estimated by using the current compaction rate and daily tonnage average to estimate how long it will take to fill the landfill if conditions remain constant. Compaction rates and tonnage rates can change for a variety of reasons, including the economy, large projects, etc. Like I said, like I just stated, it's just an estimate based on a snapshot in time. So it's not unusual for the remaining capacity to fluctuate from year to year. If you look back at this, this goes back to 2015 and kind of shows some information for the MSW remaining capacity. These figures are based on the total permitted airspace. This includes cell 5, which hasn't been built yet. So you can kind of see, like we had a big year in 2016, and then we had a lot less the next year. So we actually gained 4 years. But then we had another big year and we lost 5 years. So you can kind of see it does fluctuate. For the last 3 years, we've been pretty steady because as far as hanging around 10 years, because the tonnage has been going down. But that's not to say, next year we might not have a big year. Our compaction density is excellent. It's remained really good. So this is the remaining capacity of the realistic remaining capacity without including cell 5. And that's got a estimated fill date of October 2027. So basically 4 years. But just to emphasize that can change. The timeline of bidding out and building out cell 5, it'll likely take around 2 months to bid out, and then if everything goes to plan, 6 months to construct. So we're looking at a total of around 8 months from start to finish, if there's no delays. I'm going to run through the different financing options that we have for this project. The first and preferred option would be a loan from GFA. GFA is the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. The Georgia Fund is a state-funded loan program for water, wastewater, and solid waste infrastructure. Eligible projects include treatment plants, pumping stations, but also Subtitle D landfills for landfill expansions and closures, and gas collection systems. Their current interest rate is a low interest rate of 3.14%. This could increase in their next meeting in January. They meet quarterly for the calendar year. It's a 20-year term, and the maximum loan is $3 million per year. The next meeting will be in January 2024. To be considered in the January meeting, the loan application is due November 1st. So this kind of breaks down the cost of this loan. If you look at the 3.13%, that is the current rate, but it could increase in the next meeting. So that's why we also included the 3.25. So for a 20-year loan, it would cost us around $1,080,000 in interest. If the interest rate goes up, that would bump up to around 1.126. Option 2 would be the to utilize the solid waste enterprise fund cash on hand. The current available cash balance is around $3.8 million. The cash outlay would significantly deplete cash reserves. Option 3 would be a general fund loan. The general fund is currently earning around 5.37% interest in Georgia Fund 1 LGIP account. Expenditure would result in revenue loss for the general fund. $3 million at 5.37% would be about $161,000 annually. This amount is contingent on loan repayment schedule and interest rate fluctuations. And that concludes the presentation.
There's no penalty for early payoff of this loan, right?
No, sir.
Campbell, if we took action tonight, would you be able to make the November 1st drop dead deadline?
Yes, sir. ACC will have the construction plans finalized, and we'll be able to get the application in.
Do you have a recommendation as to which option you'd like to see us take?
Yes, sir. I would recommend the GFA loan, option 1.
Option 1, the GFA?
Yes, sir.
Final question for you. You come pretty highly recommended from a nice place. If you had known we were facing this in all of its iteration, would you still have come here to work with us?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's a good answer.
It's a very good answer, and we're happy to have you, sir.
Let's get a
Thank you.
motion on this item, please.
Motion to approve option 1 for the GFA loan.
Second the motion.
First and second, any more discussion?
Yeah.
on Option 1?
Just briefly, in looking back at the capacity issue, now what would the time frame of this project to completion be? You may have mentioned.
It would be roughly 8 months, but that would
Okay.
be contingent on the loan. We wouldn't be eligible for that till January.
Okay. So, from today.
So
year and a
from
half-
today, if we got started, if it took us till, say, March to get it bid out, we would likely complete the project around this time next year.
Okay. And, I know you had mentioned we have approximately 4 years of capacity left in where we are now. And I know we have maybe some flexibility. Does the MSW get outside county waste coming in, or is that just the C&D? It does. And we have, throwing the scenario out there, if we started filling up capacity sooner than later, we could change our outside county rates to be a higher amount to kind of slow down the, amount bringing in. I know that also brings in revenue, but obviously we want to make sure we have enough capacity for our own residents first, so.
And
Yes,
I might add to what we talked about in the last Solid Waste Authority meeting was the vertical and horizontal expansion, the task order for that. So once, everything's got to be completed within the the DNO plans. You can't, the waste boundaries are set. That's why we need to do a major modification of that. And what that'll allow us to do is go higher on the cells that we already have built and fill in the terraces, which will buy us a number of years.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
I have a comment. The site originally was built and it opened September 28th, 1992, and life expectancy of the entire site was 20 years at 150 tons a day. We had the best compaction in the state of Georgia. That's why we was rated as the best landfill in the state of Georgia at one time. And we probably still are one of the best. So that just shows you efficiency of what you can do. When you pack it tight, it stays there. You don't have the problems and everything. And from what I see.
What we're selling is airspace, so the
That's all
tighter
we
you
have.
pack
Better
it.
you get it, yep.
That's all we have to sell is airspace. That's it.
Great, thank you.
I actually have a picture I need to blow up and give you, Campbell, of the very first load that ever went in that thing. It was brand spanking new.
So speaking of loads, when do you think you would be putting a load of trash in this cell?
If everything went, according to the timeline, it would be around this time next year. Yes, sir.
Now, would you start in that cell before we close out the current one?
Well, no, we would keep filling in the cell we
Okay.
were at, but it would be ready for trash. You're right. It would be after that, and then we would build that cell up to the other cells and then go higher.
Okay,
Just do it in stages.
stages,
Yeah.
yeah. Awesome, thank you.
All right, we got a first and a second. All those in favor? That is for getting the GEFA loan.
Yes.
All right. All right, this brings us to the last public comment section for Solid Waste Authority. Anybody wish to speak to the board? Seeing none, we'll move on. Well, now we need a motion to adjourn the Solid Waste Authority meeting and reconvene the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, we're now back in the regular meeting. You want to do it all over again?
Yes, sir. The purpose, is to request that the Board of Commissioners to consider the approval of authorization to apply for a GFA loan in the amount of $3 million for construction of Phase 5 at the MSW landfill. Solid Waste Department would recommend approval for that.
Commissioners, just real quick before you make the final consideration for approval, if we could just request from you the term that you would like to see, whether it's the 10, 15, or 20-year term.
What does our finance department recommend?
The
Well,
interest rate was the same.
The interest rate was the same and there's no penalty for payoff. So, I mean,
And do it to 20.
yeah, I mean, if you want to consider the 20 based off of that for your lower annual premium, I mean, the faster we can pay it off, obviously, the
Sure.
less
Yeah.
interest we're going to
Gives
pay.
us
But
the option to do
it gives
that.
us the option to
At
do
no
that.
penalty.
And you can double up on the payment.
Right.
Yep.
Nancy, if you wanted to provide any further input.
All right. can you- Nancy, are you there? Oh, heard some static.
No pressure, Scott.
Yep.
All right, can I get a motion on this item?
Anybody you want to call her or?
She's calling her.
So it is $3 million. We can wait a few seconds to get her on phone maybe.
Yeah.
Would like to hear her input, what she
Yeah.
thinks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I agree. I mean, it sounds like it makes sense to.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you on speaker and just switch up the mic here, okay? Having the technology issues on her end, I think, but Nancy, I got you on speakerphone so they can hear you.
Okay, could you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fantastic. I would just agree that we'll have the options in the future that we could either decide to do the 10, 15, or 20 years based on the cash flow at the solid waste. At this point, we're just putting in the application anyway. It's not accepting the loan. So I think this is just a first step, and we could consider the term as we go, as we go along and find the cash flow in the future.
All right.
Yep.
So our motion is basically to start the loan process.
Yes.
Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
I'll make a motion that we go with option one to apply for the GFA loan and determine the terms at the time of the acceptance of that loan.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries. All right, this brings
Thank
us
you, Tom.
to,
Thank you.
this brings us to calendar King.
There's no changes at this time.
County administrator comments.
Yes, sir. So, last week, the board, several commissioners, I believe, if not all of you, and some staff were able to attend the ACCG Legislative Conference here on Jekyll. It was a great event. So at that, conference, the, association was able to vote on the top 3 priorities, to take to the state level for consideration, from the General Assembly. Out of several of the items, I'll just read off some of the items that were up for consideration. There was the mental health and behavioral health services for push from counties, property tax assessment and appeal reform, emergency medical services reform, the full financial responsibility for state prisoners, SDS and loss negotiations between cities and counties, sales tax on digital rentals and subscriptions, housing affordability and accessibility, single county T-SPLOST, and soil amendments derived by byproducts, as well as next generation for E911. So out of all of those items that were voted on, the top 3 in this specific order was mental and behavioral health is the top priority, followed by property tax assessment and appeal reform, and then followed by the emergency medical services reform. And that's just, we've had it on our legislative priorities for probably the last 2 or 3 years now, the EMS reform. So it was really nice to kind of see that still being pushed at the state level across the state from several counties. So very excited to be able to attend that and be a part of that. We appreciate Commissioner Brandt for his service as our voting delegate, as well as his service on the ACCG Policy Committee. He was the chair of the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Committee, and I believe the soil amendments was able to make it on there, so we really appreciate that. The other one, we've put out some notices here recently on our website as well as our social media, just about various road work that's going to be happening throughout the county. More specifically on Colerain Road for this Thursday and next Thursday for cross pipe replacement. And we've also had several announcements here recently just to serve on different various committees or boards throughout the community. So if you have a chance, please take a look at those if you can. And that's everything I have. Thank you.
All right, this brings us to the final public comment section of the night. It'll be limited to 3 minutes. Anybody registered to speak? Anybody? Yes, sir. Come on up, Rob.
Bauer, Harriet's Bluff. Got a couple things. Why did they all cheapen up everything out at the Harriet's Bluff Park with the plastic up on top in Cupola? They should have put back the original vents up there. And secondly, what's happened to the little putt golf course down there? No one knows nothing?
This is time for you to comment to us, sir.
Well, I'm doing. I'm asking you a question. You can't answer it?
Nothing's happening to the putt-putt.
Where's the putt-putt at?
Soccer field.
Plus, across from the rental place down there on alternate 40. That's all I got. Just keep dragging your feet, people. Just keep dragging your feet.
Anybody else wish to speak before the board? All right, seeing none. This time we need a motion to adjourn the regular meeting and convene an executive session.
Make a motion to resume, to adjourn the regular meeting and go into executive session
Second.
This is to discuss litigation.
to discuss litigation.
We got a first and a second. All those in favor? on executive session and reconvene the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Motion carries. All right, there was no action during the executive session. We just received information only. Nobody's got anything else. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
And we appreciate everybody staying for the meeting.
That's right.